Okay, I think we are live.
Live and streaming.
Yes, we are. Hey, Bradley.
Hey, Abhinav.
How are you?
I'm outstanding. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well, Brad. I'm doing very well. Thank you for being here today and being my first guest on the podcast. This has been a fun setup for me. It's been in the works and really excited to give it a test run.
This is your very first show,
It's
yes?
the very, very first show.
I'm here for the birth of it.
That's for the birth. You're the man.
That's right.
You're the man of the hour. Awesome, man. What have you been up to? What have you been thinking about lately?
Oh, we got a couple of different topics we can talk about.
Yeah.
We talked about one of the ideas I was thinking about lately was a relationship algorithm.
Tell me about that.
End.
What are you thinking about?
Well, I'm just thinking
What's
about
your crazy mind stirring up there, Bradley?
Yeah. Crazy is the nice way of putting it.
Yeah. We're all
just
crazy.
the idea that if things run according to algorithms, if the world runs according to rules,
Sure.
shouldn't relationships do the same thing? Then you go, of course they do. People pay a lot of money for relationship courses, and there's counselors and everything else that supposedly know these rules, right? And so then I thought, well, what about the process of getting into a relationship itself? Meaning when two people just suddenly say, oh, I'm attracted to you. And then where do they go from there? How does it go from the beginning all the way to the end where they're bonded, so to speak? Meaning they're growing together as people. And I thought,
where's the point that you go from strangers to, I think I want to date this person? Is that what you're saying?
I'd say strangers to infatuation, meaning that initial excitement, and then you start dating them, and all of a sudden it's like you're excited to see them all the time, and
Yeah,
you
fair
just
enough.
can't get enough of them. And then eventually, my impression is, according to my reading so far, eventually that develops into bonding, which is a different neurochemical. It becomes oxytocin, if I remember right.
Okay.
Which is a bonding chemical. It's the same one that's given off when moms have babies. Like there's vast amounts of just going
So
crazy.
that creates the bond between the mother and the child.
Exactly. And so the oxytocin starts being released more, according to what I understand, between 1.5 and 2.5 years after you start dating.
You're saying that it takes that long for a bond to happen?
It takes that long for the initial rush chemicals to wear off.
So you're saying to see if long-term sustainability, if you're like past the phase of, initial relationship jitters, so to speak.
Sure.
It's going to happen after roughly.
Yeah, between 1.5 and 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just the idea then that now you're going, okay, now I know this person as they actually are, not the infatuated, ooh, I'm so excited every minute of every day for you. And so I thought, okay, that's probably step one. Make sure you understand the rules of infatuation and how they work, and recognize that they aren't the same thing as bonding.
Mm.
You can be infatuated with somebody and think they're absolutely awesome physically, and you're going crazy to be with them. But then in the long run, they don't have any, they don't have long-term goals like you do.
Yeah, fair enough.
You don't have the same idea about anything. And yet that initial physical rush is still there. And I think a lot of people mistake that for long-term compatibility, which isn't really true. You might get lucky, maybe not.
So how do you even begin to think about, I'm going to build an algorithm that is going to allow me to find a compatible match? Because, a lot of these algorithms potentially claiming like the Tinders and the, I don't know all the other ones, but
Right.
That's the most common one I know for sure. And there's tons of them out there now,
Sure.
all claiming that they have an algorithm that will potentially find you your match. So why haven't you pursued that? Why do you feel like you have something special?
I think they're ignoring the obvious biology component because it's too inconvenient for them to address it.
Because
For
it's hard to
example-
globally spread it, no?
No, just because some of the stuff that's pragmatically difficult from a business point of view.
Speak that in simpler terms.
Are you familiar with the major histocompatibility index?
No, Brad.
No, Bradley, I'm not.
He's talked about, dog.
He's just making up words.
He's
I know
making
you
up
are. I know
words,
that's
man.
real,
Come
Brad.
on now.
Come on, no, that's real.
Yeah, all right.
Them's just jokes. Now, the MHC histones are these big molecules that your DNA is wrapped around. And so
NHC.
MHC.
MHC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so this index determines the signature of your immune system. And so in a very famous test, they had men not wear deodorant and wear a shirt for a while so they'd sweat on it, so it kind of smelled like them subtly. They would give these shirts then to women
Just
and
like
say,
average day wear shirt.
yeah, just average wear a shirt.
Okay.
They go, okay, which of these men are you attracted to and why?
So
And
women would
sit there and
sniff
smell
the
test
shirt.
without ever having seen the guy or anything else.
Okay.
They don't know anything about the guy other than the smell.
What kind of women volunteer for this, first of all?
People have to get
Questionable.
they make the college kids do these experiments. Like, oh, you're a Psych 1 student.
Hey,
Come sign up.
how do you advertise for that? Seeking women in their late teens and early 20s to sniff a T-shirt.
Who don't mind the smell of a manly man. Yeah.
Sure.
They
All
put a
right.
picture of a cowboy on it. I don't know, something.
Monetary, probably.
That's right. Probably economic. That's
Yeah.
right.
Alrighty. So,
Oh, well, so the women selected overwhelmingly men who had an MHC signature that was a certain distance away from their own on some plot, meaning that they would be optimized for the immune system of their offspring.
so there's something that points out that there's like a connection, one for one, like you have a match.
This is your MHC match. And this MHC processing is going underneath
Hold
the
on.
conscious level.
The hell does MHC stand
Yeah.
for?
Major,
Hold on here. Major
histo.
histo.
There you go.
Okay, what is this? Wow, that's quite a word. Major histocompatibility complex. All right. Wow, okay. I've never heard of this.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty cool. It's a signature of how strong and robust your immune system is. It's a signature of what you will find to be the foreign agent.
So it says it's a genetic system
Oh, there you go.
that allows large proteins in immune system cells to identify compatible or foreign proteins. Okay, compatible or foreign proteins. It allows the matching of potential organ or bone marrow donors with recipients. So this is basically saying what is inside of your DNA. If I introduced something foreign, will it?
Does it know that it's a foreign thing?
Okay,
Yeah.
or does it think it's part of its system?
That's right.
Because if it's a foreign thing, it will
It'll know to
kill
attack
it.
it and get
It'll
rid
kill
of
it.
That's right.
because that's your immune system. But if it's so, it's almost like, so if I understand correctly, it's like there are certain keys that will open up certain locks, and we're saying there's a subset of these keys that exist that they're known to fit in these locks.
Those are exactly what your immune system is. What it recognizes.
Quite interesting. Okay.
If you Google the T-shirt test, it might be a little bit easier. It's
Let's look it up. Why not?
straightforward.
T-shirt test. Why not?
There you go. Sweaty T-shirts and human mate choices. The very first lead.
There you go.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking that we have a genetic test, which these days are very inexpensive.
Yeah.
People pay an initial fee up front for the site. And so then they go, here, we're going to get you somebody that automatically you will have that initial first blush toward.
Okay.
You're going to be near them. You're going to go, oh, wow, I find them attractive. We've all seen this. We go someplace like a party or something. You look at somebody and go, wow, they're attractive. And you go, why? Well, sometimes it's because they're bubbly or they're pretty in some external sense or whatever. But sometimes there's something else, like a factor you go, I don't know why it is, but I feel really attracted to that person for no extra reason that I should know of. It's things like this. They're factors that are underlying our conscious activity. And so right there, that's going to boost your attraction toward the person.
What do you think about, I feel like so many people just have a standard basically in their head created of what type of person they think they want to date.
All right.
Right. So I think what people are doing when they look at like, a dating app, they're just looking at, well, physically, I'm pretty sure I'm attracted to this person because of X, Y, and Z criteria that I have. And then really there's nothing beyond that on an app. Maybe they get a description or something, but who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? But, and also you don't know if that's real or if it's doctored or if whatever. So you're saying this is one of those things that scientifically could potentially be a factor. But I wonder, now this is at a level of, your genetic.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there's any studies done or any correlation to say, okay, what you find attractive genetically or what your system thinks is attractive, how much of that is actually like a mismatch or a match of what you believe to be your ideal mate based on physical attributes, perhaps personality traits that you find viable. I wonder.
Yeah, I don't know if we even have that much knowledge yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if genetics has figured that. My impression is it hasn't, but what do I know?
But that'd be cool if your algorithm does work.
Well, and that's the thing is new technologies like that come online, we could use them.
Yeah.
I was thinking MHC is first, facial symmetry is second, because it's shown that people have more symmetric faces are more attractive.
Okay.
Which means you could sit there and do an analysis and go, this person is, 65% attractive, whatever that means. And this other person is 90% attractive.
Right.
Well, like our speaker we were listening to said last night, everybody tries to date 25% above their grade.
Right.
So we can actually match these people within some kind of variance. So it won't be 25%, but maybe we can put you, close enough that everybody goes, oh, okay, that person's, okay, I'd date them.
Yeah.
And so now automatically this will help prevent mismatches. And so there's also things like we have lots and lots of psychological batteries these days that I think are...
What does that mean?
Psychological tests that somebody can be given.
Okay.
that I would think would show a lot more
Like
about them.
psychological analytic tests to determine.
Yeah, like the common one is what's called the Big Five inventory.
Okay.
A very standard psychological test to see things like a personality type, so that you can plot that in 5 dimensions.
Got.
It's things like was it conscientiousness,
Yeah. 5. I think I know what you're talking
agreeableness.
about. Yeah. The 5.
It's called like the Big Five inventory. I remember they call it.
Let's look it up. Oh. Say, what do you think it could be?
They put it as their Big Five.
Big 5 personality.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is measuring 5 very important personality traits that they think are like core basis in vector
Okay,
space.
here we go. We
in
got
fact.
openness,
Yeah.
right? We got conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Neuroticism is like negative.
Well, my impression is it's just a tendency to be a little to have an irrational action or belief
Okay.
that is intransigent, and I think that's it. I'm not sure.
Let's look it up. Neurotic. Well, I guess neurotic person is having.
Having
Okay, well, that's a great definition. Self-defining.
Oh, there you go.
Individuals who score high in neuroticism are more likely than average to be moody and to experience such feeling as anxiety, worry, fear, anger, frustration, envy, jealous, guilt, depressed, mood. Well, I think
They're the life of the party.
they're the life of the party, but everybody has a level of so these are traits that exist in all of us, but it's just a degree of which
them, yeah.
that you
Well, apparently I completely misdefined neuroticism a few minutes ago, so I
that's
apologize
okay.
for that.
Well, that's why we have Google.
That's why
We're not trying to just put stuff out that's not factual
right.
here.
We check our stuff.
Check our stuff here, you know.
No, but yeah. So, and the idea then is these are the 5 bases. Like you can construct somebody's personality by looking at where they are on each of these dials.
So how would you? I feel like some companies though haven't they tried like I don't know. There's got to be platforms that are charging a little bit more premium for their services, right? And they must be charging or having you maybe take some sort of a disc analysis or a personality trait analysis assessment, and then mapping those as part of their broader algorithm.
I would think so, but have you seen them?
No, I haven't. But I don't.
Maybe somebody else is, and I don't know it.
I haven't also done the extensive amount of research to find out if they are or not.
That's true. No, me
so
neither.
I can't say that either way.
Yeah, maybe they are. I know the basic free ones aren't, because I've been on a few of those. But maybe if you're doing like eHarmony, which is a little more like detailed, I know they charge more, so maybe they are.
Okay.
That Dr. Neil Patrick or whatever his name is.
So recap for me. Step 1 would to build an algorithm to decide on how you would find a mate.
If we're looking down the algorithm, the first step is to find the right mate. Okay,
find a person that you can then analyze to see if they're your mate. No?
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to get a filter for who do I want to be with.
Okay.
Which is all everybody's ever doing. They're just not doing it very well. And so you go, okay, how can I do this? First, look at the biology. It's like a layer cake. The bottom layer is the biology.
Yeah.
So you got your major histocompatibility index, complex. You have your facial symmetry to see how close you'd be to somebody else, in terms of symmetry-wise. I thought that was, and the personality tests.
Okay.
Now, on top of the personality are going to be things like goals. I mean, if you have friends who you go, hey, my long-term goal in life is to travel the world, and your partner's long-term goal is to sit at home because they hate traveling, that's big enough of a problem, it might become an issue. And so these are the longer-term things. So you're going from this base biology of, okay, your hormones match theirs, to at the top of it is, here's our long-term goals, where we're going with our lives, our attitudes about really big topics, and then just underneath that is their personality in general. And so my hypothesis is that if you match these across multiple people, you could actually construct this in a sense. You could do a much better filtering mechanism from all the people in the world to my optimum compatible partner, or at least local optimum, but maybe not global.
What's the least? I guess I should say, what's the most rapid way of prototyping and testing this? How could we do this?
Well, I was wondering. I've never seen somebody do the MHC test, but I was wondering, like, with the genetic
what's the cost for an MHC test, perhaps?
Yeah,
and then also like you'd have to have the ability to interpret it, perhaps, and all the other stuff.
So what you need is somebody to build an engine that would graphically take it and put it into like some kind of, okay, here's your value on A, here's your value on B, C, D, spit it out, put it out graphically to the web page to show people this is somebody that's compatible for you. Now, what's interesting is if you constrain this tightly, you might not have very many compatible matches. We're not just looking for 1 in 100. We might be looking at 1 in 10,000 people that match across all these dimensions.
I guess that's a lot of data to collect.
Yeah, and well, the thing is, it's not that. It's that since you're looking at 1 in 10,000, your potential mate could be living 180 miles from here or something, and you're going, dude, why can't you find somebody in San Diego? Well, because you wanted a very good fit. You didn't want just it's okay as a fit. You want a great fit.
What about just getting people a good fit?
You can do that. You could just
like a bargain relationship algorithm.
Like, for $10 a month, you get somebody you can tolerate. They won't kick your ass and you won't kick theirs, so it's cool. Imagine.
I love that. Can you imagine tiering? What kind of mate do you want? Yeah, I want the premium. I want this full service package. And
it's like a Rolls Royce or a Tesla.
Yeah. Wow. But you know what? Maybe it's not so crazy that we're talking about this. Honestly,
no. Honestly, you're
thinking about all the data that we're already collecting.
Sure, why not?
It's just a matter of time. It's not a matter of whether it's possible or not. It's just when.
Right. It's just a matter of when, and
then that's a good way to capitalize on it is to, tier it. Why not?
Well, we've talked about this just briefly, you and I, before. Just I think about the idea of how much similarity do you want to have with your potential partner, and how much difference is there, so that you have novel things to each bring.
I guess 100%. Yeah, the similarities would be near, core values, things that are like along that nature.
Sure.
And probably differences in like ideally would be where you lack, they pick up.
Sure.
But I don't know. Yeah.
But you could optimize that.
You can optimize that.
You can sit there and go, give me all the qualities of person A and person B, and they overlap 80%, and each one's making up what the other one doesn't have. And there's a little variance out there that, that each of them brings in separately.
Yeah.
And so you can sit there, you might be able to do this with big data with all kinds of things, from whether or not they spend their time in parks, because if you have GPS data on them, you can tell where they're spending their time, to whether or not they drive long distances, because somebody that hates
I was thinking about what you just said, actually. Yeah. So you're saying taking the data that's already there, like geo data that exists from your cell phone in your pocket all day.
Sure.
Which, at some point is going to be utilized to the highest bidder, right? Like, I mean, data eventually is if you're going to make money off it, you have to sell it. Mm-hmm. So somebody's going to utilize that data or at least maybe test. That's a good point. They can figure out all these traits.
Yeah, what are your traits I can access based on your geolocation?
If
you're on a college,
what kind of pattern is it? Like, how often do you go to certain places?
How active or sedentary are you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you're moving or not, right? Because a lot of people are so attached to their phone to their hip, you can definitely track. You can
tell exactly.
Or even check this thing out. This thing's tracking my movement all the time. Hey, you need to stand up. Hey, you didn't do or whatever. Very true.
It's only a matter of time before you start pulling that salient information out, and it sounds so nefarious. But if people don't mind it,
what's the word?
Bad.
Bad.
Threatening.
Sounds bad. Yeah. All right.
It sounds so threatening, but if you think about it, what if it really could help you find that right person? When you sit there and go, well, I already have water.
Well, I'll give you some more water.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe can we please have some water? Thank you. That's our behind the scenes
production assistant.
First
producer, Mimi.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and you sit there and think, what's the optimum? If you go, everybody has these good purposes.
She wants your glass.
Oh.
She doesn't want to come in the frame.
Waving at me.
No, she just doesn't want to come into the frame, so I get it. All good.
We all want the same things, right? We all want connection. The problem is we're trying to sort a haystack and get a needle out of it. And of course, we're trying to sort 1,000 haystacks and go, where's the needle, the right person? Now, of course, it's possible you can go with somebody that's okay. But if you're saying, I really want the right person, it's a lifelong thing.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe you do pay. I'd gladly pay for it.
I mean,
I'd pay good money for it.
It's worth it.
Yeah, if you're going to tell me you're going to find me an incredibly compatible person for the rest of my life, who doesn't want that?
So it's one of those things that I feel that once you have the data, can be done.
Sure.
But today, how can we potentially find, let's say, you a mate?
Right.
Or what's the wireframe version of this that we can do? That's because I'm trying to think actionable. What's possible?
Well, I'm sure they have the Big Five inventory almost online. I think that's open source now, actually.
Yeah.
So you could really take it and just put it into a thing, and it analyzes the data with a script within, how the way you write, a day or less,
sure.
A couple hours, right? And you go, well then, okay, now I can get the Big Five, so that gives me a personality thing. But now I'm still kind of just competing with Neil Patrick Harris. I keep saying that. I know it's like, was it Neil Warren something?
I don't know.
The guy from eHarmony.
Oh,
And so the old guy who keeps saying that he's the guy, so many matches. Oh, thank you, miss. So there's so many. It's eHarmony, Dr. something, Neil Patrick Harris, that guy.
eHarmony guy.
Oh, there it is,
Dr. Neil Clark Warren.
Dr. Neil Patrick
Yeah,
Harris.
I'm pretty sure that's the guy from
How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, How I Met Your Mother.
After How I Met Your Mother, he started a website.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's.
Thanks.
Okay, that's great.
But then you're just competing on the software. You're going, okay, how can I
who's got the
convince
better? Who's got the better algorithm?
Yeah, so you're gonna have to do better. You have to do more than that somehow. Which also leads me to, I'm kind of going, okay, well, maybe those MHT tests aren't that far away, because I don't know if they can do them right now or not. Because I know they have, sequencing for like $100, and that's 23andMe, and they'll tell you all kinds of stuff about your genome. Like, well, I can't believe this is
the ancestry stuff you're talking about? Yeah.
I can't believe that this is any more than that.
Have you done one of those?
No.
I feel skeptical.
Me.
I feel skeptical about giving that kind of genetic information out. That's kind of like you're volunteering to basically be on a database of where they can scan you. I don't know. I'm sure eventually it might be unavoidable.
It's close. Did you hear about the guy who just got arrested for a 40-year-old crime?
No.
He got arrested. Is someplace like, I think, over in Indiana. Yeah. And he gets arrested. The way they got him was because they had DNA from the crime scene from like the 90s when they couldn't even hardly sequence DNA. And it had been saved all these years. They check it. Now they're at the point where they can do a phylogenetic, which means they're talking about the behavior that is expressed as a result of the gene. So, for example, you might have the gene for 2 different eye colors. Yeah. Which one's actually going to pop out? And we one or the other, and that's called the phylogeny, the expression of the gene. And so they were able to phylogenetically analyze his DNA, and literally say, he's about this height, he's about this race, he's about this build. They built a composite of the guy without even having ever to see him. There were no witnesses.
That's crazy. What's this case called?
I don't know. I think it was man arrested in 30-year-old cold case, something like DNA. Because when they found the rest of his DNA, they checked it. That it is. Yeah.
CBS.
Yeah, that's
murder.
It. Yeah. This girl was killed, and they literally took to the DNA and compared it and said, we don't have his DNA on file because he hasn't done anything. Yeah. However, they took, it's one of these public databases, I think the Ancestry.com database, and said, here's somebody that must be, I think they said it was his cousin, like he's related to him. Right. And he said he lives in this area, and he has this build, he's this race. They just looked around for that person and said, hey, do you have a cousin named so-and-so? Yep, I do. Wow. They tracked him down through his relatives that had never done anything wrong either. They were just in the database from doing like the Ancestry or the 23andMe.
Right. That's amazing.
It's pretty insane, because then you're going, this means that, let's say, for example, I committed a crime, even though I'm not in any database of DNA. They would literally have that now by looking at, say, my mom's DNA if she had ever done 23andMe. Yeah. And so very soon I'm like, well, how could you ever hide from authorities under certain circumstances now? Doesn't seem like it.
It's got to be a way.
There's always a way.
It's always a way.
I've seen like Dexter and Forensic Files.
Oh, yeah. Dexter was a good show, man. But it was super repetitive. Yeah. But good show.
Yeah. I'm only on season 3.
Oh, you haven't even finished this? Mm-mm. Oh.
I'm only now on season 3, yeah.
Oh boy.
They just caught the Bay Harbor Butcher.
You got to check out Ozark next.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I think that's a good show on Netflix you should check out.
Yeah, that does sound pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a cool show. I think because just of your nature of your interest in being real precise with stuff.
Very tactically minded.
Very tactical guy. I think he's a good character. So how far have you thought this thing through, man?
Well, and then I thought, okay, because the algorithm was primarily for my own use. I'm not necessarily trying to start a business with it. Okay. Just the idea, though, that if I had this, it would be awesome.
It would be awesome.
Because I'd pay them. I'd pay somebody $10,000 if you could tell me I was going to find a partner that we're happy with each other within a year using your system, or you'll give me my money back. Here's $10,000. I'd pay you this.
Because really, what's been the challenge for you? Why haven't you found somebody that? Okay, first off, I just want to take a step back, and I want to just for the people that would listen to this, I want to point out, Bradley is a very incredibly bright person. He's got, if you look at him, how society would, defines people that are credible, PhD, masters, 6 degrees in all. The guy's incredibly qualified.
And in debt.
And, well, sure. But, Yeah, actually, you know what? That's real.
That's right.
That's
Fed loan
real.
servicing wants my money
That's
every
right.
month.
That's right. And actually, you know, you've seen quite a bit through your profession and just being a professor. You know, there's a lot you see in the universities.
It's true.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like it's not like you're not exposed to enough people in the day. You know, you're getting a ton of people
Yeah,
coming in
that's
and
true.
out from all different backgrounds. So I mean, what has really been hard for you in determining, you know, or finding a match?
My best guess so far is that it seems to be difficult because there really isn't. Calling it intellectual compatibility sounds a little bit insulting and b a little bit vague to me. It's more like we don't like talking about the same things.
Yeah.
And I go, well, if a lot of my life is science, a lot of my life is science, and so and this person in many cases just doesn't want to talk about it very much, and I don't. It's kind of
Yeah.
hard. It's kind of like for most
what
people, it's
if-
like they're children.
But
That's how important it is.
but
to
why
me.
do you? Oh, but you want to? Okay, so let me ask two questions. Is it that you want to share with this person your, like, you know, what you're doing in your life? Is it to that level, or is it that you want their, you know, undivided attention to, hey, here's like some, you know, stuff I'm theorizing or whatever? You want both. I mean, I guess you want
Yeah,
both.
I
You
mean,
know,
I said
honestly,
both.
like you want a variance of both. But
Right.
but I'm thinking, what if somebody was a little bit more independent? They didn't really necessarily need to know a lot about your business, and you could
Yeah.
go about being that way, but they're fulfilling you in all other areas of your life, as in, you know, they're still a great person, they love you,
Yeah.
take care of you, and all that good stuff, and vice versa. But you're not necessarily connected on the same field, and I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I could deal with that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. It's a challenge. It's one of those things where you kind of have to go, well, what am I willing to compromise on, and what am I not? You know, and
high risk, high reward.
high risk, high reward. Kids, x-axis is risk, y-axis is reward.
That's
The
right.
line should be linear.
The line should be linear.
That's right. If it's underneath, it's called an asymmetric risk reward in your favor.
That's right.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit earlier. We're
Yeah.
going to talk about this a little bit
Oh yeah, we're gonna do this
later. We're going
right.
to talk about, you know, what's coming up in the economy, and I mean,
You're screwed. Sorry. Sorry. You're all screwed.
yeah,
This is gonna be Economic Collapse the musical
yeah, right. It's how you can basically prepare yourself. I
by
mean,
gold.
pretty much.
Stock. Hoard supplies.
Terrible. Yeah, I think so. To wrap up the whole algorithm piece, I
Yeah.
think
So let me ask you this: do you think relationships are algorithmic in terms of how they develop, or is it the case that these are just some magic? I'm reluctant to use magic. Sounds supernatural, but I mean, people think of it as being unpredictable or art, not a science type thing.
I think the relationship part is it's interesting. The world we're living in today, and how people go about approaching people. You know, people are generally looking where they go for their extra activities, right? If you're not allowed to date people at work, which generally is the case, right? Then you go on dating apps, or you go out. I think gyms are like a popular place. You're gonna see a lot of people, and then it's already a good place to start picking candidates, possibly because you have mutual interests, so you
That's
already
true.
have that established. Or but you know, that's not to say anything. If you know, go to a restaurant, you see somebody, or a bar, that's fine too. I think the pattern is in people's behavior. Once somebody's understanding of what is it that they want in life, I think that's very important, because if you're not still figuring out kind of like what you want to do, you know, and you're not doing anything about it, it's going to be tough for you to find a mate, because you know you're yourself so lost. So I think you need some level of orientation. Obviously nobody knows everything about where they're going or what they're doing, but some level of orientation would be useful.
Yeah, otherwise you're just kind of drifting around.
Yeah. So if you have that about yourself, then I think you're more likely, which you obviously are. You already know a lot about yourself, and still learning, of course,
Yeah,
you know.
sure.
But it's like you know enough, and then you can kind of project. Okay, what is it that I like? So you're almost defining what is it that you find meaningful, valuable in a person.
Right.
Now, I don't know if when you're putting that input, or where you're putting that input from, like what your biases are, where you're gauging it from, what viewpoint are you getting that, you know, that I want the person to be with to have, you know, this color of hair because I really love that. Or I don't know. I never thought really that much about
Well, there's
that.
also this problem whether or not somebody can accurately self-report that.
Sure.
You know, somebody might say, well, it's important to me that they be funny. And then they actually date somebody and they go, well, maybe that wasn't that important to me. They
Yeah.
might
Well,
not be able
what's
to query
funny? Funny is a
themselves accurately.
subjective thing too.
Yeah, but I
You
mean,
know?
the person can't even tell what their own thoughts are. They think they want this, but they want that.
Yeah.
And they don't even know it until it happens. And they're
So I
like,
guess
oh, I was wrong.
so in that case, because people that don't know, then the algorithm or something that was based on a foundation of biology, it supersedes your cognitive
Yeah, because you think you want
biases.
A, but you really want B.
Yeah, because you're not necessarily tied to your viewpoints.
Yeah.
You're seeing, okay, this is a good foundational start. You know, perhaps what would be more useful is if we could have a test that could give you an understanding of what kind of people you should look for. So it's actually giving you because our brains are really good. If you tell it what to do, like specifically enough, a lot of times we don't do shit because we don't know how specific to execute, right? It's
Right.
like that's what happens with me. It's like, oh, okay, I want to do this. Well, how? Okay, well, and then I'm not able to break it down as far as I should to
Right.
execute on it.
Yeah.
But if I don't understand, then I don't do it. So I totally lost my train. Where was I going?
We're talking about the idea of whether something would be executable. We should give them a personality test. So
Yeah,
tell
so
them
if
what
you give them a
should go.
test, then they can understand what type of, what to look out for at least.
Yeah.
You know, I think that would be very useful, and that's
Good,
easier to do
Probably, yeah, a lot easier, I would think.
because then you're kind of, saying, okay, like for example, I don't know, when I was looking for a girlfriend or want somebody to date, I like somebody that stays physically active. Above, like I want a few things, like I want them to have good family values. Financially was a thing because I was like, okay, I don't want somebody that's not gonna have a career of their own.
Sure.
And then I want to support only. Not that but that's just my own thing. Might not be yours. You know.
Right.
So, and then I thought, okay, I don't generally care what background racially they are. I didn't necessarily consider it because I'm attracted to a lot of different, good looking girls. Like it's a lot of different beautiful women out there.
I'm sure you are.
Well, why not? Why not? You beautiful people everywhere.
That's right. That's
I live
right.
at the beach.
San Diego, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was a bodybuilder, man. I like girls and guys' physiques. I see a dude that's in really good shape. I admire that. I can see what it takes. I know what it takes. It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like either way of there's a different. It's almost like I think of people as in beauty sense. Like to me, there's like a level of perfection that came with bodybuilding or people that take time to sculpt their physique. It's like it's like a beauty was a thing that Peterson was alluding to last night about.
Right.
Hey, there's this mystery behind beauty, and there's also kind of it's a little scary because we don't understand it completely. Well, what makes it so beautiful? Can we really identify what makes something beautiful to us? Like, what is it? Is it that it's so perfect and it makes us feel like that's something we want to achieve? But perhaps there's also a fear that we're so imperfect ourselves, and we're looking at this thing that almost feels like it could be godly because how can it be so perfect?
Yeah. I don't know. There probably is some form of neurological basis for that. Meaning, what determines why something is pretty to one person but not another.
Yeah.
And maybe our structures are similar but a little bit different. There are probably structural differences biologically. So if you could actually rewire that, I've always wondered, like, could I make, I don't know, anything? Could I make a stick look beautiful to somebody if I had their neurons rewired just right so they go, oh, that is beautiful?
That I guess I think what you're saying is if I showed it to you from a different perspective, would you look at it?
Or if you, as the observer, were a different perspective, meaning you've had literally brain surgery and they've cut.
That is
So
interesting.
I'm saying, like, they cut a little piece of your brain that deals with beauty. Because I've seen this before. There was one woman I saw who had open brain surgery, and they were poking in some part of her brain, and she thought everything was funny. She said, "Oh, you guys," because she's awake, because they're awake, because there are no pain
Right, because your
receptors in the
brain doesn't feel
Right.
pain, so you can actually poke
Yeah,
at
so you're
it.
awake, and they use it for exploratory things. Like, what
That's
are
so
you feeling
cool.
now? And she was laughing, like crazy. She said, "What's so funny?" He goes, "You doctors just standing around. It's so funny." She thought everything was funny, and everything seemed to be humorous, which I've heard is a reaction to some people when they have marijuana, but I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't know nothing
I
about
don't
that.
know nothing
right?
about that. But if we did know, it might be possible.
Yeah, it could be.
No, I mean, it's California. You see these people all the time,
I mean, there's definitely like marijuana is known to elevate your mood. For sure.
Yeah, and so maybe it is that just like there's a region in the brain.
So is
somehow-
alcohol some way, but it's also alcohol has been classified as a depressant though. So
Yeah.
I don't think. I don't know.
Well, maybe, so you sit there and think, does that mean every subjective human experience is actually obtaining its qualia, meaning the sense of what it is like, rather than just being a videotape from some part in your brain, and could you alter it? So, for example, let's say you have a memory, you remember it fondly, right? It looks like a beautiful day outside. Well, if I could mess with your brain so you thought that was funny, or I could mess with your brain so you thought the ocean was ugly. Could I mess with another part of your brain and make you hate the memory instead of love it?
So mutate the emotion you have attached to the memory
Yeah,
by just
if
by
the memory itself,
physically altering your brain is what
of
you're
your
saying.
brain. Yeah, if the memory is out here like a film strip, there's this, like you've talked about before, the observer and the observed.
Yeah.
There's another part inside of you that attaches. What's that memory like? Am I happy about it? Is it in my far past? Or does
Yeah,
it
there's
feel
some
like it just
emotion
happened?
attached to that memory.
Yeah,
for
there's this
sure.
extra meta information, metadata.
You're saying, can I mess with that metadata?
Could you mess with the data
and
by
will
messing
it
with the brain?
affect
Yeah.
your output on
Yeah.
the memory? So I know that our memory itself, like when we remember something old, we can change it as we're speaking it. So and
Right.
so you almost like are trying to read something, and as you're reading it, it's fuzzy. And while it's coming to you, you're like adding more data
Yeah.
into the memory.
Right.
But as you're adding this more data into the memory, when you're all said and done telling your story, the next time you remember it again, I believe what at least psychology says, you're actually remembering the last time you told it.
Yeah. I think, as I remember right, memory degrades over time, and you can mutate like where it's going, depending if you remember it incorrectly each time. There's all kinds of compound effect. I was thinking about this earlier. When I knew you years ago, did you have a beard and mustache?
No, I did not.
In my
I did
memory, you
not
do.
have-
In my memory, you do. I saw your picture on the wall over there, and it's you
That-
without the beard and the mustache.
Without the beard, that's what I used to look like.
And in my head, you always had the beard and the mustache.
Well,
Even
that
when
is
I remember
trippy.
you, I'm going, that's not true. That's definitely not true. I thought, wait, wow. I
But
thought
you
it
know
was.
what? Now that you say that,
Yeah.
when I think about Brad Hughes,
Yeah.
what clearly, distinctly comes to my mind is our physics classroom and the colors scheme
Yeah.
and what you used to look like then.
Yeah.
You were a little skinnier,
Oh,
obviously.
skinnier. Yeah, sure.
And to me, it's like
And
a
younger
skinnier,
by several
taller,
years.
younger. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That is the picture. And whenever I think about you,
Yeah.
that is still the picture that comes, even though we've, interacted many times
Yeah, for
now.
years and years.
And it's like,
Sure.
that's still, that's weird. Trippy.
Well, my ex from way, way back when, I dated her when I was like 17. We were in high school.
Yeah.
And then I started dating her again at 25.
Yeah.
And then she very quickly, like within a month or two after we started dating, quickly lost 30 pounds. And she just said it was her homeostasis. She was much happier, because she'd been single
for
before.
sure. Yeah.
And so, and she goes, I guess I should be thankful that you didn't really notice in some sense because, you didn't notice I was 30 pounds heavier before. And I said, you look exactly the same to me now as you did when we were in high school together.
Right.
My feelings are very strongly tied to this image of this person who I go, it's years later. We're both 45 now. I can't imagine what life would be like if I saw her. Damn, that is old. Damn. How'd you even get here without a wheelchair?
It kind of scares me, man. I'm sitting at the back end of 26 here. I'm about to be 27 in March.
Sure.
I'm an older 20-year-old now.
You're on the wise end of the 20s.
Yeah. I'm closely approaching that 30, and it's scaring me a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit because I don't know. Like I think a lot of people go through this. I think a lot of people my age or around my age are, thinking, am I doing everything correctly? Am I doing what I should be? Like, am I set up properly? Am I, because I don't know. You're not really taught how to be a proper adult, honestly, right?
Right.
Like, apart from your parents, and they do the best they can. But what do your parents really know if they weren't really taught how to be a parent?
That's true.
Like they've just done their best, and maybe they've done a great job, and you're very fortunate. But I think there's a question of wonder in every single person about that.
No, I've heard this before. A friend of mine said that she likened it this way. She's a friend of mine from high school, right? And she and her brother have gone radically divergent paths. She has 4 or 5 children, and they're, this is, a lot of her time is spent raising her children and raising them well. And the oldest one, I think, is a teenager now. Her brother loved playing the saxophone in high school and started playing, I don't know where, but eventually now, last I heard, he had been on tour with the Red Hot Chili Peppers as their opening act.
Wow.
And so his lifestyle is literally like you hear in a movie, like he can go to there's concerts traveling all around the world and parties, and hers is sitting in Ohio, and enjoying her life, and she expressed to me once that she said, yeah, I feel like, I wonder if I'm doing it wrong. And then, her brother kind of mentions, yeah, look, we're all just doing it the way we want to do it.
Right.
And it kind of made me think I was going, I'm paraphrasing him pretty badly, but the idea that there isn't a right or a wrong answer to it. It's what's best for you.
Wow. Yeah.
And I always figure if I'm happy more than, if I ask myself how happy am I, if I'm an 8 or above out of 10 most of the time, okay. Because, I've heard Tony Robbins say the problem with problems is that you think you shouldn't have any.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks they
There's
shouldn't have
always
any
something.
problems.
There's always a gap between where you are
Yeah.
and where you're going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if that's a good segue into like talking about how people could potentially prepare for what's coming, because honestly, a concern that I've heard other people voice to the younger generation, the older, wiser folks, is that we've never really seen a massive economic downturn apart from 2008. Most of us, we haven't necessarily seen things go terribly, terribly bad,
Right.
like the 2000 or like before that, or
You know, in the 80s.
the 80s. I wasn't even born, right? So
One
like
in the mid 90s.
yeah, so we don't know anything. Honestly, we don't know what it's like right now. We've seen in our entire childhood has been a massive shift in technological boom. Basically, all the money, dollars, everything's going there. You know, I have a career out of that, and it's like that's where everything's going. So we've only seen growth. Honestly, 2008 was a hiccup. You know, but I don't know. Like I know my personal family was definitely affected by it, but like in the grand scheme of things, that was not even that bad.
Well, I think it's my impression is that the drop in the S&P was comparable, not as much as, but like it's only second to the depression.
Yeah.
And so the point is that if you,
But the recovery wasn't
the recovery wasn't as
like
bad.
it was like 30 days later or
They took
90
it
days later.
easier,
It was
yeah.
like, okay, we're like going.
Yeah,
on
we're
the
starting to
climb.
go the other way,
Yeah,
right?
So
And then, of course, they call it a beautiful deleveraging if the credit markets restore themselves in a way that's optimized.
beautiful deleveraging.
Yeah, anybody who really wants to know this should watch Ray Dalio's How the Economy Works. You can YouTube
Ray
it.
Dalio has
It's
some
a
good
30-minute video, and it is.
Yeah.
I got it. For the longest time, I couldn't understand because I would look at economics. I go, why is it that if I give Abhinav $1 and he gives $1 to say his landlord, oh, there's only so many dollars. How can we possibly have booms and busts if there's only so many dollars to be had? And I found out by watching his work that that's just not true. We create debits all the time. Every time I use a credit card, I've literally magically made a debit where there is no dollar there tied to it.
I've said I owe you.
Yeah,
right?
It's an IOU, right?
Yeah.
And if you add up the amount of how much outstanding debts there are compared to the actual amount of dollars, I thought he said it was like 9-1 or something. It might even be worse. The debts
That's
goes
how
way
much
up.
we like
We are exceeding the number
spend
of
without
dollars.
having.
Yeah, so like let's say let's just make up a number.
So the
Yeah.
global economy is just a teenager that doesn't know how to control money.
Quite apt, yes.
Yeah.
And so eventually, he said, you pretty much have to pay the bill. Some people will start losing their jobs, and the system starts to fall down like a series of dominoes. And so this is why we've always had booms and busts as long as we've had the type of modern economics where we've credit markets.
Oh.
You know, without credit markets, you wouldn't have the people incurring the debits.
Well, we keep raising our debt ceiling. Is that the correct terminology?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so what that basically means, from my understanding, is that we're essentially saying, so we have X amount of debt. We obviously can't pay it off.
Right.
Why don't we just increase how much we have, so we can keep spending?
Do you mean
Because we're gonna have to pay it off anyway.
increase the amount of debt we have?
The debt ceiling, so how much more we can keep
Yeah.
spending without having to pay it back, right?
Right.
So why do we do that, and how can we keep doing that?
The problem is that if you borrow money at a low interest rate, it's like economic gasoline on the engine. You can use the money that you've borrowed to do something with, right?
Okay.
So we will incur debts to other countries all the time, and they incur debts to us. Each of us owes each other money. And so you hope that if you keep stimulating the economy with this in the right way and in the appropriate amount, the economy will be healthy.
Right.
If you have an idea to go start a business and you have no money, it could take you a long time to build up to that point. If you have the idea to start a business and someone says, I'll give you a nice low interest loan so you can get started, then I can stimulate growth in a way I couldn't before. My impression is, although I've never checked this, the problem is not the actual amount of debt you have. It should be debt compared to your GDP. Meaning a tiny country might not produce very much, so they shouldn't have as much debt.
Right.
And so you can see how over leveraged they are, meaning how much if they've taken out too much money and they can't ever pay you back. It's kind of like one of those really high risk loans.
So what happens to those countries?
So far as I know, they get restructured the debt. I don't know I think the country, if it had to, would say it defaults.
Like, is that what happened to Greece?
The Greeks were defaulting on some of their debts. I think to the European Union. I think they were supposed to pay a certain amount of money into the European Union, and did not. And that created, I guess they called it the Greek Eurozone crisis.
Gotcha.
It was a question of, well, if somebody doesn't pay back their debts. Now, of course, we're talking at a super macro level, a lot of which I don't know a lot about yet. But we're talking at this really high level of like, this is the whole world's economy. But the same thing is repeated on smaller scales all the time. States borrow from other states, cities issue municipal bonds. And then down at the local level, You have something like, banks that'll give you a certain amount of money, and then you can put it in stocks or houses or whatever. And so all this is the same cycle of people borrowing and paying back, taking it bigger and bigger levels over the course of, according to Ray, about 8 years.
So what?
It was 8 to 13
So
years.
now tell me, what is it that you think is happening based on, and to anybody listening, anything we're talking about, we're not advising you to do anything with your money. We're simply just having a conversation.
Yeah, neither of us are pros.
Yeah,
we're not licensed.
Neither of us
or
is a
certified.
licensed
Anything.
financial advisor.
Yeah,
definitely.
I'm telling you what
me.
I think for me, and you do what you want.
Yeah, do what you want. Make your assessment.
Like
And
Tony
that's fair.
Robbins said, "I'm not your guru. Do what you want."
Yeah, do what you want to do. All right. So what do you think is going on? Like, let's have a little bit more about.
Okay,
that.
so we know the cycle goes up for a certain amount of time, and then at some certain point you can't borrow any more money. Meaning the company goes, "Hey, you're not bringing in enough to pay back your current debts." Some of the companies will then start to go into default, which causes the market to go downward. Companies go into default, they lay off the workers. The workers get laid off, they won't buy more stuff.
Sure.
Now, of course, we're starting on like a roller coaster. It's reinforcing itself going down because now they won't buy more stuff at other places. The other places also can't pay their debts, and now they go out of business. And it's like this chain reaction. And so that's normal. This happens all the time. Ray points out in the video that these are boom and bust cycles. I could never figure out when I was younger how it is, because I remember being in the recession in the 90s and in the early 2000s and going, how in the world is it? Like, we still have a certain number of dollars in the world. I said that now I know that's not true. It's the actual debts with interest on them that are getting messed up. Yeah, they're created, as he puts it, out of thin air. Yeah, it's brilliant. He's so brilliant.
He's one of the richest men in the world, right?
Oh yeah, he started Bridgewater Associates,
$18.6 billion.
Yeah, one of the richest guys in the entire planet.
And he's a financial guy through and through.
He started his hedge fund literally out of his 2-bedroom apartment with no money.
Amazing. Incredible.
Yeah, and he's really good. When he talks, I really go, he's got a lot to say.
How do you counter him with somebody like a Warren Buffett?
Well,
or are they? I mean, they're parallel.
Yeah. Buffett is more of a buy and hold long-term investor. He's looking for companies that he thinks will go up or down based upon
people perception,
perception and long-term things like fundamental indicators. Like, do they just not have? Do they have too many competitors? Are they not able to bring in enough revenue because of some licensing issue or whatever?
Sure.
Dalio, as a hedge fund manager, is trying to go for short-term grabs. Like, he'll look for shorter-term profits.
Okay.
But in order to do this, he says you have to be going against what everybody else thinks is going to happen, and you have to be right more than you're wrong. I mean, he goes, if everybody else is watching the stock market go down, you're waiting until there's blood in the streets, then you buy, because that's when it's going to start going back up again. You have to run contrary to what other people are thinking and be right.
So, ethically, it's kind of silly because it's like it's like the have versus the have-nots, right? Sure. People are always trying to, we're almost like gaming other human beings.
Yeah.
The lesser sort of people that are more frivolous and maybe not necessarily of higher conscientiousness and understanding their behavior patterns and just being fools to mass marketing.
Right. You sit there and go, you're like, is that fair? I don't know what else to do.
I don't know.
I've thought about economic systems for a while.
So what do you do? Do you suffer too? Like, I mean, So
do I join them?
Yeah, do exactly. I join them? Should I suffer? And then you also think about, well, should I help these people by giving them money? Is that the way to do it? I don't think so.
And then are they going to make the same decision they just made, and they're going to lose that money? Sure.
Well, so I think
it's a complex question.
It's a very complex question, not a straightforward answer. But with that said, though,
for what I'm doing, the economy is about to go into a recession.
And that seems pretty much the common thread everybody is saying. But it's almost the question is really when and what can you do now and how can you prepare yourself at this moment to be in an anticipating you're anticipating
make sure you're ready,
but you're ready to pull the trigger when needed.
Well, step one is to look at what's called the divergence between the 10-year and 3-month Treasury note. You want to pull it up the screen?
Let's Google
just Google Fred 10-year minus 3-month.
Okay, let's see what this is.
Yeah, there it is. So Fred, the St. Louis.
Fred is a. So we're at a website here.
Division, there's the Federal Reserve Bank.
Okay,
this is they robbed in Die Hard 3.
Oh, that's what it is.
The Federal Reserve.
Love that movie.
Originally, they held gold, but now they also help.
You know what's funny about that? You told me this in our physics class about that movie. You were like, you know how those guys are robbing those gold bars?
Yeah.
It's completely unrealistic. Those things are
Yeah.
heavy.
Yeah, you take
You
the
can't,
density of gold.
you can't
There's
just
no way.
you can't just toss around
Yeah.
gold bars.
Funny, that looks like a styrofoam bar with
Yeah.
gold paint.
Right?
How is that happening?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about Fred.
Oh, so the idea of Fred is then tracks the difference, the maturity, the 10-year minus 3 month, what the rate is that they are paying for that on the open market. So, for example, if they're equal, if a 10-year Treasury note is going for, I don't know, make up a number, 3%.
If a 10-year Treasury note, can we define what that means?
Meaning it's a bond issued by the United States Treasury that says in 10 years you'll have X amount of dollars.
Okay,
And so they buy and sell these on the open market, just like stocks. It's on the bond market.
gotcha.
And so their publicly quoted rate, they'll say the 10-year Treasury is make up a number, 3%, right? And so the 3-month Treasury is in 3 months, the federal government will pay you this much. It's a shorter term thing if you want to tie up money for a couple of months. And so then that is some other number. Now, normally people will pay more for the 10-year security in this case than they are for the 3-month. What that means is this number will be positive. You can see on the screen where it's percent. It's the difference, one minus the other. So if they're both getting 3%, then it's 0 because 3 months, the 3% minus 3% is 0.
Sure.
Now, what this calls is an inversion. Whenever this number crosses beneath 0 is
Right
what you should
here.
be watching. Yeah, well, 0 is down there on the very bottom, the little black line. Yeah, when that
So
blue
you're
line,
saying whenever, let me zoom in here, whenever here goes below, so this is the 0 line, I believe.
That's right.
In the chart here,
Mhm.
0, 0. So whenever it goes below this is indicative of,
that we're going to have a recession within a year.
damn.
Now, I can show you data on my spreadsheet. I
Yeah,
emailed you.
can we look?
Yeah,
So
let's
here,
look at
let
that.
me pull
So
that.
what you're watching for is the date that divergence hits 0. That's what they call it.
Okay. Boom.
Okay. So I took every recession
Okay.
since World War II, and you can see them listed in there in column A.
Right.
And then I looked at what month the 10-year minus the 3-month at 0, meaning the signal we're looking for. When did it happen?
Sorry, say that again.
Sure. The 10-year minus the 3-month.
So this is the second column.
Yeah. And so I said, what date did that happen? What month and year? Because I want to be able to look at the recession. I want to see when did it hit 0 in the bond divergence, and then when did the actual recession start? And so I'm looking at how far apart they are in each of these. And so you can see the column C now is the recession start date minus the bond divergence date, meaning how far apart did you get the signal from the recession?
Okay.
Okay.
How far did you get the?
So the signal that you're going to have a recession until the recession started.
Okay, so based on the graph that we saw, how far
From then until the recession
till the actual
starts.
recession happens? What was the time frame based on the last
So,
however many years you did
Based
this?
on every recession taken since World War II.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. The difference between them is normally 9 months, and the standard deviation is 4.4 months. Now, it's hard to tell if this follows what we call Gaussian statistics because there's only a few data
You're gonna have to
samples.
explain that to me and my audience in a way that
Oh.
makes sense because none of us are mathematicians here.
Okay. You've got the number for the average of something. It gives you some information. However, it doesn't tell you about how likely it is that you are on the average value. For example, let's say we're taking the heights of average people in a room of just adults,
Okay.
adult men. So they might say the average height is 5'10".
Okay.
And so they've sampled a bunch of just men sitting in a room someplace, right? Now let's say instead I pulled a sample and I said, what's the average height of a group of people that are made up of toddlers and the NBA basketball teams? When I do so, I still might get an average of 5'10", but none of the people are near 5'10". The toddlers are really tiny and the basketball players are really huge.
Gotcha.
And so that would be a bigger standard deviation, meaning the spread of how far the data is from the average.
Got it.
Something with a standard deviation of 0 means every value is right on the average. Guy A was 5'10", guy B was 5'10", guy C was 5'10", and they averaged them.
Gotcha.
And the average was 5'10". That's a standard deviation of 0. And then so as you start getting people that are further and further out, it pulls the distribution outward. So the standard deviation is bigger. It means that if you randomly pick one, you won't be necessarily likely to be as close to the average.
Okay.
Right. So let's say, for example, we did the situation with the toddlers and the basketball team.
Right.
If I picked one of the people out of the group, the average was 5'10". Is anybody in that group going to be 5'10"?
Not necessarily.
No, because I got toddlers that are like 2 feet tall, and I got NBA players that are like 8 feet tall or something. And so even though they have the same average of 5'10", because the standard deviation is so huge, you're not likely to get on that value yourself. Now, I'm using an extreme example with toddlers and NBA, but the point is how far apart the pieces are from the average.
So generally, a standard deviation graph looks like a bell curve
In some cases.
in some cases.
Yeah. If there's certain rules that are applied called Gaussian tests.
Okay.
Yeah. But for the moment, let's just assume it is because it's reasonable. It's not unreasonable, I think, to say so. So if that's the case, then the average difference from when the recession started to when the bond divergence date was 9 months and the standard deviation of it was about 4.5 months. That means most of the time you will get a recession starting between 9 minus 4.5, which is 4.5.
4.5. Yeah.
And 9 plus 4.5, which is 13.5. So you should
So
expect between 4.5 and 13.5 months from the moment that the bond divergent
hits zero.
You're going to be getting a recession.
And it's headed
starting.
that way.
And it's headed that way. You saw in the graph how much it's been going down. I thought it was going to hit it a week and a half ago. It was
so
a 0.15.
what dictates it going back up?
Normally when the economy starts to get healthier, when people are willing to pay more for those securities again, you'll see the spreads start to occur again, and it'll go back up.
Okay, so just a recap on what we're seeing here. Based on all the recessions that have happened
Since World War II. Yeah.
What we're seeing is from the time the graph that we saw called Fred,
Yep.
right?
The divergence graph.
The divergence graph, which represents
the difference in interest rates offered on a 10-year treasury and a 3-month treasury.
Okay. So that graph is dipping, we're seeing.
Yeah,
and it's
and
about
when
to
it crosses
hit
zero, it's a problem.
When it hits zero, it's a problem, but it's also an opportunity for people to invest.
Now, we better look a little bit over, just a little bit more, a few columns over.
Okay. And also, hold on. To invest, why? Because based on the research that you did on all the different crashes, you've discovered that the time from when the graph actually hits zero to when the recession actually happens seems to be anywhere from
four and a half to 13.5
months to 13.5 months.
Yeah.
And that's when the market for sure will go down.
Yeah, but we can get a little bit better information over the other side because I can do more than that.
Let's do it. Let's go better than that.
Let's say I'm talking about the length right here in years, column F, means I can tell you how long the recession lasts before it hits its bottom and starts to bounce back up again. So you know how far out to watch. Now, this is in years. So the average length of the recession is 0.96, which means it's about a year long on average. Standard deviation is 0.367 years, which is about a little over 3 months.
So sorry, this column is representing, tell me again
how long the recession lasts.
Okay, so now to continue on, once we've hit the recession, that could be 4 months, 4.5 months to 13 months.
From
the moment the graph hits zero.
That's right.
When it hits zero, let's say we're in the recession 5-6 months from now.
Sure.
Okay.
Now, how long is it going to last?
How long will it last? And that
on average, it should last a year plus or minus 3 months.
And that's the entropy, right? The plus or minus.
The standard deviation.
Standard deviation is that.
Which means it'll probably last between 9 months and a year and 3 months.
Wow.
Okay, and then so the next column, we're starting in G.
Hold the phone, Bradley.
Whatley. Yes, Avana?
Seriously, you're telling me? I'm a little surprised. That's kind of cool.
What's up?
Well, guys, I didn't expect it. I didn't actually expect there to be such a striking correlation.
Well, let's be clear. All I'm telling you is what past data yields.
I know. I didn't expect it to be a pattern.
Hoping it predicts the future.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah. So we don't know. We actually honestly don't know.
You really don't.
This is like a theory that we're testing out.
Exactly.
Let's see. It's an experiment, right? We're not. By the way, disclaimer: we're not telling you to put your money in anything.
Yeah, or not to put your money in anything.
Yeah, do what you want.
You do with your money is your business.
Yeah, do what you want.
I'm telling you what I'm doing, and that's all I'm telling you.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you look at column I, you can actually see the percent that the S&P 500 fell from the start to the finish.
From the start of the recession to the finish of the recession, how much did the S&P 500 fall for the last 100 years of crashes?
Only since World War II, so about 70 years.
Okay, 70 years.
But so I want to be really clear here.
Yes.
I was a little bit disconcerted because when I started looking deeper into the data, a recession is defined as the third quarter of consecutive decline in growth.
Third quarter of
decline in growth, meaning suddenly we're selling less widgets or whatever for our GDP. And so as GDP drops on the third quarter, they go, hey, that's economic contraction for 3 consecutive quarters. That means that you're in a recession. Now, my concern is then, though, that doesn't tell you where the stock market was before the recession started. It's like watching a mountaintop, and the top of it is the S&P 500 at its highest point, right? That's where you want it because you'd love to make your action right there and then watch it go down. The problem is that high occurred before the start of the recession,
Right.
meaning I knew it was between the divergent state of zero and the start of the recession, but I don't know when. So I made another chart a little further over that's all
Okay,
highlighted.
let's go over here.
There you go. And so that is the high date before the recession, meaning that recession was starting in 1960. When was the highest point the stock market hit right before the recession hit?
Okay, so how many months before? Or how
That is
many...
the actual date. And then there's
Okay.
between, let me think about this for just a second.
You can move the mic back, by the way, to get closer to the screen. So whatever's comfortable for you.
Oh, there. Okay, that's fine. So this is, make sure I got this right. This should be the time between the high and the start of the recession in months.
Okay, so 4, 5, 7.5. Okay, and what's the analysis of that data in totality?
Okay, so if you look at everything inside the thick black line,
Yeah.
it's saying that the time between when the stock market hit its highest point and when it hit its lowest point was 10 months. So it's about the same as a year, but not quite. We can remember that one was like, I don't know, 13 months or
So
something.
effectively saying within 10 months, it's gonna go back to a healthier state.
Yeah, well,
In the worst case, it's 10 months plus 6.5.
right.
So it could be a
Yeah,
year
that's
and a
the
half.
idea. Yeah.
Worst case.
And so,
Best
but
case-
I'm looking at the average. I'm trying to remember my average values here.
Oh, sorry.
Average between the high and low was 10 months. Yeah, no, you're right. That's right. And yeah, exactly. Between whenever you're at the high of the stock market versus when you go, hey, I've hit the bottom, things are going to start getting better.
Okay.
And so the average time was about 11 months, plus or minus 6.5. So anywhere from 5 months to 17.
So Bradley, if tomorrow the economy starts doing better, this data doesn't make as much
No,
sense.
it's fine. It'll start doing better because we haven't hit the high point yet. We haven't hit the divergence. You got to hit the
So it's still
divergence
valid.
before you hit the high point. Yeah, we're just waiting for this to happen. I'm very curious to see if it comes out. Yeah.
So how can we speculate when? Okay, great, makes sense. How can we now speculate what's a good time to invest? Like,
Okay.
should people daily be going on to that website?
Ah,
You know, what is it that somebody should be doing at this point?
well, they should be watching Fred,
Okay,
which
so
you
just
had the link.
let's go here. We're gonna switch back to Fred here.
Yeah, and so you can see when it hits the black line, your divergence is 0.
Right,
Right.
totally.
And then, by the way, there's a paper just a little bit down if people want it on how well this predicts the market. And it does a really good job.
Okay, so if somebody wants to read that, so to the anybody watching, this is fred.stlouisfred.org. You can just Google Fred Economic Research. You'll probably
Yeah.
find it.
That's good.
Yeah.
And then, so go back to the spreadsheet.
Okay, hold on here. I gotta switch the.
I got to remember which column I need to look at here.
Okay.
Could you go to the left?
Yes, sir. You hear that airplane?
Oh, yeah.
Wonder if the mics pick it up. Most likely.
Probably. Yeah. Okay, so scroll over a little bit to the right. Okay, stop right there. And so you can see where the recession starts.
Sure.
Go a little bit more. Go a bit more. Let me think about this. Okay, I'm just trying to remember because I can map out how long. Oh,
If you need to
sorry.
write anything down, you can.
Go all the way left.
Okay.
Right, and so there you can see the recession start date. I'm looking for what I'm trying to think was I was trying to remember if I had any data on there that was the difference between when the stock market hit its highest and when the divergence date was. If I knew that, I could go, okay, when you see the divergence at 0, go wait 7 months, and then that's the highest point. Now's the time to sell everything
Start
off.
taking your money out.
Yeah. But I was trying to see, I know it's on there. I had it before. I might need to look at this a little bit more.
Well, that's fine. Not a
Yeah.
problem. So, okay. So let's say, okay, the facts are pretty clear. So if the market hits, or the graph hits 0, roughly what we have seen as a pattern between 4.5 to 13 months
we'll
from
be in a
that
recession.
point, there will be a recession in the economy. And we're very close to hitting that 0.
Yeah, we're close.
Okay.
We were at 0.15 about a week and a
Yeah.
half or 2 weeks ago.
Great. And this is cyclical. This is definitely something that happens in the economy. So it's nothing to freak out about it, but it's something you can use to take advantage of by saving some of your money now and having it ready to invest when the market is at its lowest. So then potentially you can ride the wave because it's going to correct itself.
Always does.
Absolutely does. Unless you're saying that America is going to completely fail. and the whole world's economy is going to completely fail, maybe it will.
Yeah.
But you know,
If it does, you got bigger problems.
yeah, you got bigger
You
problems
don't care
than
about
about
your
your
stock
stock
market
market.
investment.
So you might be worried about having a safe place to live.
Yeah.
So fair enough. Okay, so people should at this point potentially have their money saved and ready in an investment account. What kind of things should people be looking into? Do you
Depends
think?
on how much risk you're willing to take.
Okay, so this is now
Yeah.
talking about high risk, high
Well,
reward.
let's go
No?
low risk first. 'Cause
Okay,
there's a couple
but
easy
but
ones
that's
to list.
okay. So we're
Even
going
if
to
the
talk
market's
about
going down.
sure.
Yeah. Two things you should look at are either SDN, which is an inverse fund.
Can I get rid of this now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's either SD or SDN. If you look at like stock market ticker SD, I think it is.
Okay, let me get on the browser here right quick. Cool.
Okay, could you go to finance.yahoo.com? And then try like just SD, I think.
All right, hold on here. Okay, just search for the ticker.
Yeah.
SD.
No, that's not it. Try SD. Oh, SDS. There it is. Yeah. And so what this is an inverse fund. It means when the S&P 500 goes down, it goes up. And so you're going, well, if I'm betting the stock market's going to go down, I could go buy some of this stuff.
Because this is going to go up. It's the
It goes
inverse.
up. It's an inverse fund. Now, it has an inverse beta of what's called a beta of -2 almost, -1.94,
Right.
which means it moves at twice the amount of the S&P 500. If the S&P 500 goes down by 1, that thing goes up by 2. And so it's an easy way to grab money if you're going, I'm pretty confident that a year from now the S&P is going to be lower.
You're right.
Buy some shares of this. Help yourself.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Is it a bad, even though the economy hasn't hit the lowest? So technically, this is right now lower, right, than
That's
it
right.
should be. So
Than it
isn't
will.
it a good time to buy this right now?
Sure. If you think the market, depends on how long you're going to hold it for. And if you think that the market's going to go down very soon, then buy some of this because it's going to go up.
Cool. Awesome. What else?
You could also buy what's called PSQ.
Should I look up that?
Sure.
PSQ. Pro Shares Short QQQ
And the triple Q is your tech stocks.
is a tech stocks.
Yeah, it's a tech stock basket. So PSQ goes the other way. So if you're saying, hey, all these tech stocks have been making so much money, they're going to go down over the next couple of years in the recession.
Hold on.
then
Pause.
buy some PSQ.
Question here.
Yeah.
You're telling me that there's people that are just sitting around saying, yo, this shit is not going to work, and we're going to invest on the contrary. So it's like they're playing both sides of the game,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And that's fair.
Sure. Because every
doesn't
person
seem
that thinks,
that way.
because everybody that thinks the market's going to go up, somebody has to think it's going to go down.
Okay,
Right?
so
Why
it's
would
a
everybody
skeptic's
agree?
game.
Yeah, it's a skeptic's game.
Yeah.
I think things are going to go down, so I'm going to go buy some now. And so this gives them an easy way to get on the action, one of the ways. And so PSQ is the opposite. It's an inverse fund for the triple Q, which is tech stock stuff. And so this is another easy way if you want. And when I say lower risk, I mean this is lower than what I'm about to discuss after
So
this.
lower risk, and now this is something that these are individual stocks.
They're actually an account, what's called an ETF, an
They're an
exchange traded
ETF.
fund.
Okay.
Yeah, the fund goes out and buys stuff that would make it so that it performs.
Who owns the fund?
Depends on which brokerage house. So you'll hear like
So
Vanguard funds or something.
who would be managing pro shares, or like who
there's
would
a-
decide what shares are in there?
There'll probably be an asset manager that works for the brokerage. So, I
So
guess
a
Vanguard's
brokerage
the one.
puts out a share or a ETF.
Well, some of these banks are so big. You could have funds and you could also have other services. I think I can't remember who put out ProShares. It wasn't Vanguard. I don't know who it is.
Okay.
But like Vanguard is a giant bank.
Yeah,
Can
sure.
do
I
this.
have Vanguard.
Yeah, and all they're doing is saying, okay, we're going to put together a basket of assets that when the S&P goes down, this thing goes up.
Okay.
And so that way, if you want to bet on the market going down, because you're going, these people aren't being reasonable anymore, go ahead and buy some of that.
Interesting. So this is now considering now we talked about a graph a little bit earlier where it was risk on the y-axis.
No, risk on the x-axis.
Risk on the x-axis and reward on the y-axis, and essentially you would draw a line through saying that the higher your risk, the higher your reward.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Right.
Right.
That would make sense.
Right.
And if that's not true, then it's
An
asymmetrical
Right.
risk reward situation,
which is what you want.
which is what you want because it's in your favor.
Yeah. If it's asymmetric, meaning you only risk, say, $1,
Right.
but every time you win $2.
Okay.
Well, sure, if I'm paying a game that's a 50-50 game,
Right.
then overall, if every time I lose $1, and every time I win $2, in the long run, that's easy to see I'm ahead. And so the risk was $1, the gain was $2. Now, of course, the problem is you also have to weigh in what the probability is of each outcome. With something like a coin flip, it's obviously 50-50. With something like rolling a die, it's 1 out of 6.
Yeah.
Right? But with real life, it gets a lot trickier. What's the probability the United States will default on their assets? What's the probability this country will do that? What's the probability our political system will do this? And all these things are generating probabilities that you have to subjectively assess.
Is that data that is only privy to the financial firms?
Well, I don't think anybody even knows how to calculate it, even in principle. I don't think I've ever seen a way that you could, because there's too many variables in the world.
Yeah, who is actually sitting around doing this?
Yeah, and maybe how could you?
Well, yeah, I don't know. You're right.
There's all kinds of data that's still being left out of the model. And so therefore you won't capture very much of the variance. But so the idea is then you can go buy these. If you want to go a little riskier, meaning you want
somebody would buy this.
Sure.
And then they would monitor the Fred graph.
Well, they should buy this after Fred crosses.
Right. So let's say Fred is at 0 and you've ended up buying Pro Shares, and then what was the last one we just talked about?
SDS.
SDS. So you bought Pro Shares and SDS. And now what should you be doing to monitor?
Waiting to see. And of course, this thing said from the high of the S&P to the low was, I think it was like 9 months.
Right.
That means you should be holding this for about 9 months, and you're probably going to be at the point where now you're at the highest. Because while the stock market was going down, you were going up.
Okay.
And so at the end of that 9 months, you go, okay, it might be time to sell out now.
Okay.
And the longer you wait, the bigger chance you're taking.
Right, because as soon as the other market starts going up, you're going down. So
Exactly.
you got to kind of time that too. So I guess is you looking out for when to time that. What are some tools or resources somebody could potentially look into?
Well, obviously the spreadsheet I think said 9 months on average. But if you want to go,
I know, but like let's say 9 months, that's the average. But how is there some real time metric that we can track or we can?
The unemployment rate comes out. I remember once a month, I believe. I can't remember how often.
Where does it come out? Just anywhere?
It's the office of.
I don't know why you know that.
I used to know this too. I don't know why I knew it.
That's a good question.
But you'll get things like unemployment rate, consumer spending.
Yeah.
This will give you some idea as to how far something goes down before it starts coming back up again.
Right.
And so once it does, you go, okay, wait your 9 months, sell it back out. Get out of there. And that would be way number 1 to make some money. Way number 2 has more risk, but also a lot more reward.
Which is
to sell stock or to purchase put options on the stock market.
All right, let's take a second. Let's look up what the heck put options are.
Sure.
Because I don't know and I want to learn. Okay, a put option in finance, a put or put option is a stock market device which gives the owner the right but not the obligation to sell an asset at a specified price by a predetermined date to any given party. The purchase of a put option is interpreted as a negative sentiment about the future value of the underlying stock. So you're saying it's going to go down, I think.
Right. That's right.
Is there something that is the opposite of that?
Sure. It's called a call option.
Gives
you the right to buy it at a price. And so when it goes up, let's say the stock is trading at 100.
Okay.
And you buy a call option with what's called a strike of 100. Means if the stock stays at 100, you don't do anything. But if it goes up to, say, $101, you go, oh, good. Now I can buy this stock for $100 and sell it off on the stock market for $101. Make a dollar.
Okay.
And so you buy a call option when you're bullish, meaning you think the stock market's going to keep going way up. Because if you think it's going to go up to, 120 by the end of your expiration of your option,
right,
you buy the option for $1, and then you pull out you get your option. It has a strike of 100, and at expiration, the stock is at 120. Now you get to go ahead and buy the stock for 100 and sell it off at 120. So you made $20 minus the $1 you pay for the option is 19. So in a sense, you risked $1 because you couldn't lose more than your option premium. The most they could take away from you is what you pay for the option, because you don't have to. You have the right to buy it, but not the obligation to do so.
Whoa.
So you're risking $1, but if you think it's going to go up to 120, you could gain $19.
But you only lose $1.
You only lose $1 because that's all they can take. And if you're expecting the right moves, you can set up an asymmetric risk-reward ratio, because you can't risk more than what you pay for the option. They can't take any more than that.
The gain is way higher.
Yeah, if you do it right.
So that's essentially now hacking the linear graph that we described earlier of, having a linear risk to reward ratio.
Yeah. Now, there are probably some people, I got to think about this. It depends upon where you think the thing's going to go is determines your risk reward because you could lose all of your
And
money.
what determines where you think things are going to go?
This is where the
This is a
subjective
perception
probabilities are the
problem,
problem.
right?
Exactly. If you're really confident, let's say time traveling you showed up from a week from now and said it's going to be a 120, then of course it's better. But now you're going to have insider knowledge. That's not the same thing.
Ooh.
Yeah, but so if you do this, if you buy some put options, you buy them further down than what the S&P is currently trading at. So for example, the S&P is I think like 260 something. I thought it was 266. So let's say I want to buy one. I think the stock market's going to go down 20%. So I buy an S&P put option with a strike 20% down. So that would be 52 away. So let's say I'm saying the market's at 266.
$266.
Yeah, I think the SPY fund is currently 266 something.
Okay, yeah, let's take a concrete example.
Yeah.
So let's say it's at 250. Make math easier.
That's good. Let's do it.
So go ahead.
So I buy an option that says, hey, I'm allowed to sell that to somebody for $200. That's the
Because
strike.
you think it's going to go down by $50.
I think it'll go down $50 or more.
Okay, so you say I'm going to sell a put option, or what's
I'm
the
going to
term?
buy a put option.
I'm going to buy a put option saying that I will buy the S&P 500 at 200.
Wait, I got to think about this right.
Is that correct?
It gives me the right to.
Okay, let's see what it says again.
I gotta make sure I do this correctly. I always get screwed up
No,
with the puts.
no worries. That's what we're here for. All right.
It gives the owner the right to sell it to you at $200. There it is.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's right. It gives me the right. For example, if I buy the put option, I have the right to sell it to you at $200. Now it's currently at $250, as you said. So it's useless because, well, why would I want to sell it to you at $200 when you can turn around and sell it for $250 on the open market?
You'll get $50 and I'm not getting shit.
So that means the put option only has value when the price of the stock goes underneath the strike. Now let's say it's dropped way down to 150.
It's like 150 or something.
Well, I get the right to sell it to you for 200 no matter what, which means I can buy it at 150, sell it to you for 200 because I bought that put option, and now I've made my $50.
So who would be a candidate that would buy it at 200 though if it's at 150?
They don't have a choice because they sold you that put option through a security, through a brokerage.
Oh.
They have to buy it at 200. That's why they sold you the option. They got $1 for their trouble for hoping it doesn't hit 200.
So you're telling me there's companies that are putting out these options.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's actually mostly the Chicago Board of Options Exchange in Chicago.
Are these guys stupid or something?
Mm-mm. People write options. The brokers write options on all kinds of prices because you don't know for sure if the market's going to drop to 200. If it doesn't drop to 200, I lost my dollar.
But they're speculating too.
Everybody's speculating. That's all it is.
That's why I don't want to. That's why I never was attracted to this game because it's so hard to understand.
Yeah, you literally are going, okay, I think the market's going to do this or that. That's all you're doing. Yeah. The market makers, like at the options exchange, make options with certain strikes. They'll do a strike of 200, 201, 202. Yeah. And that way you can buy it wherever you want it. Think of it as being setting up like the gambling machine. And they're setting it up so you can pick which option you want to bet on. Yeah. So, for example, if the stock market starts at 250 and I think it's going to drop to 200, a $200 put option, a strike of 200 put option might be really, really cheap because it has to drop by 20% to get there. So you might only pay 20 cents or something for each share that you bought.
Right.
And in reality, when it hits all the way down to it, it might be worth like $8 or something. So you're going, I risked 20 cents and made $8. And so the idea then is if you do it right, if you're pretty confident the market's going to go down by, say, whatever percent, which I can put on my spreadsheet there, then that's how far down I know to put my strike price.
And that's a reasonable estimate.
Yeah, based on the past.
Based on what we have seen as a pattern in the past.
Yeah, right.
No, all right, fair enough.
And that's it.
That's it. So what are some actionable items people could do for purchasing or looking and learning and to figure out which put options to purchase?
Okay, so the first thing is if you bring back up the graph, or I'm sorry, my Excel sheet.
Oh, okay, give me a sec. Let's go here, sir.
Okay. You can see then that the percent fall of the S&P 500 in column I from start to finish.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That's the wrong one. That's from the start of the recession to the finish of the recession. If you look in column K, it says the percent fall from the highest to the lowest. This is actually taken from an article on Seeking Alpha.
Yeah, let's look up that article right quick.
But wait, before you go there, notice the average drop that is 33%. That means you expect the stock market to drop 33%.
So that would be you putting in the put option
a strike
of
33% lower than where it is now.
Gotcha. Interesting, man. Let's look at that right quick. Keep opening a new tab back here somehow. I don't know why it does that. When does a recession accompany a stock market correction? And when does it not? So what did you find in here that was...
That the average recession length is about 33%. There you go.
Gotcha.
There you see the percent decline of each of the recessions. So the average is about 33%. And the standard deviation, though, when I took the numbers in, they didn't put it in there. I did it. To calculate the standard deviation, it was like 16%, which means that on average, about 70%
Yeah, you know
of the
why
time,
they didn't do it? Because they're probably going to sell that to someone, right?
Yeah, because that's standard deviation. Yeah, exactly.
That's the grunt work that you did.
Yeah.
Sweet, man.
So that means you're looking at about 17% to 33 plus 16, which would be 49%.
So how would somebody then be looking up which put options to invest in?
So now this is where it depends on your risk profile. If you go, hey, I just want to make some money to make sure I'm okay, you should put some, 33 minus 16, which is 17%. Put some 17% beneath the current price. That's where you should put your strike. Then put some 33% beneath, and then put some.
That's so you put less money in the higher
risk ones, but you're almost guaranteed to make some money because it's going to hit through 17%.
So I see what you're saying. So you're buying put options, but different strike.
That's right.
Prices
with different strikes,
and some being very conservative. That
Mm-hmm.
You're like, for sure it's going to happen. I'm gonna make a little bit of money. So maybe you put bulk of your investment in there because it's low risk.
Because you know you're gonna make some money.
And then more as you say, more aggressive. Basically, you're being and saying, I think the economy is going to go even shittier than what it is now, right?
Right.
Essentially, was what you're claiming.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Wow, that's awesome, man. Thank you
My
for
prediction
explaining
returns
that
about 400%.
Dang, Brad.
We'll see if it works.
Well,
if we come back in about a year and a half and
we'll definitely do a follow-up
sure.
episode to see how things go throughout 2019.
Absolutely.
And as you keep coming back here, because you're guest number one in forever.
Guest number one. That's
Dude,
right.
You're 0,
I get
0.
like a golden key or something.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, I forgot my golden key.
Oh, golden key. Darn it. I missed something today, right? That's cool. So that's it, right? So the walk away from what people can do, essentially what we're saying, and again, not saying that you should invest your money in anything. We're not recommending you to do anything. What we basically discovered and talked about today was essentially based on the graph that we saw earlier, which is the 10-year Treasury maturity rate.
Yeah, between the 10-year and 3 month.
Yeah, 3 months and 10 years. And that graph is on a rapid decline, and it's about to hit 0.
Yeah. Now, when it does, bring back the Excel sheet.
Uh-huh.
I'm still looking for one exact thing. Does that thing have a second page on it, like further over, or is that it?
Yeah, there's...
Can I see the...
I actually don't know if there's a second page on it, man.
Huh. Because I knew there was a thing... Oh, wait, here it is. Column R. Time between the high of the market and when the recession starts. Now, I'm also looking for... There was the time between the bond divergence equaling 0 and the high. Because you got to know when to go ahead and make the play. I'm going, okay, if the divergence is 0 on January 1st, how many months do you want me to wait before I go ahead and do the thing?
Right, exactly.
So could you scroll over? I know there's a thing in there. It's supposed to be the amount of time between the divergence and the high. Okay, so that's just the length of it. So keep going.
Highest point date minus bond divergence date. That's it.
I knew it was in there somewhere.
Of course.
So there it is.
Bradley put it in there.
I was like, dude, I don't play.
I ain't playing around here, son.
I ain't playing around, kid. Why? I don't know why the 1940s showed up, but whatever.
Sorry, whatever. It's fun. We're having fun.
Look at our divergence, see?
That's right.
So column D then has the downtime between when the divergence hits 0 and when you're actually at the highest point in the S&P 500, according to every other historical recession. And so its average is 6.4 months, but the standard deviation is almost 6 months, which means within a month after it happens, after you hit 0, you could be at your highest point. We can't say for perfectly sure, but if you want to make the play sooner rather than later, you might want to wait more than a month or two after the divergence hits 0. Now, when it does, then scroll back over a little bit more to the right. Then you could say that on average, the thing is going to fall about 30%. Here's two different ways I calculated it in columns K and Q.
31 to 33%.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so standard deviations are right around 15-ish%.
Right.
So then you should automatically set your drops at 15, 30, and 45.
And that would be a good...
That's where the strikes are beneath the current value.
Meaning that a strike of 15 on your put option should be the
15% lower.
Yeah, which should be a bulk of the investment to
Yeah, to
keep
be
it low
safe.
risk, to be
That's right.
safe, and then 30,
And then 30,
and then 45.
because I'm taking each one, rounding them, and going, give me 1 standard deviation away, the
Wow.
average, and 2 standard deviations
Incredible.
away. And then, so if you go a little bit to the left again, how long did it actually last? The recession lasted about 1 year, according to column F,
Right.
and the standard deviation was about 4 months. I thought I had a highest state minus lowest state. If you go a little bit further to the left, hold on. Do you see?
I think it's this, right? The first one, no?
No, I don't think that's it. High minus spot divergence.
What's false divergence signals? Oh, those are data pieces that were skewed and taken out?
Though they actually went through 0 and did not give you a recession correctly. Every recession has been preceded by a divergence, but there have been 2 cases in history whenever the thing hit 0, but you didn't get into a recession right away. You had to wait longer.
You think that could also happen this time?
Honestly, no, because it seems so clearly self-evident. There's no geopolitical thing that's making it do what it's doing. It's just naturally reaching the end of its cycle.
Huh.
Now, but then it's okay. So you can see clearly that the length of the thing was in years, was 1 year plus or minus about 0.36. Now, the problem I'm having is this is the actual recession start to recession end. Could you go all the way to the right one more time?
Sure.
Okay, so here you go. Time between the high and the low in months and column N. So you go, okay, that means right after it hits 0, then you should go look within about a month or 2, and that's going to be the time. You put your strikes 15, 30, and 45% down from where the current value is. That's how far your price point is. And how long between when you hit that high point do you actually hit the low point? Because now you're watching the stock market every month to just see how high and low it is.
Right.
And so the time on average is about 11 months, standard deviation 6.5. So that means a really short recession might hit the bottom of the S&P within 5.5 months or so. And then otherwise within about 18 months. How can you get close? That's where you have to read the situation right then. You have to go, okay, are things still bad? Are people not buying things yet or whatever?
Okay, so how can somebody who doesn't know enough, like, they're just starting out, they may be listening to what we're talking about and it's making good enough sense and they want to educate themselves enough to understand when to sell and when to,
Sure.
pull the trigger based on the information that we've already provided.
Right.
What would be, in your recommendation, a couple of things that somebody could do to, get themselves up to speed or, on all that?
To learn a little more about how the
little bit
market's
more and
working,
be able to,
so they aren't
have an
kinda stuck on
informative
their own.
decision on their own. Because the thing is, anybody listening to this, you guys have to do your due diligence on it for sure.
Right.
You guys have to do your part to make sure that it makes all sense to you. Can't do anything just blindly, right?
Sure.
Especially if it's your money. But with that being said, I definitely want to provide something that could be of value that they can read up that you think
Right.
be most appropriate, so to speak.
Right. So if you want just you want to make sure you understand how the information works.
Yeah.
First thing I'd do is watch How the Economy Works by Ray.
Ray Dalio.
Yeah, that's right on YouTube.
Right on YouTube.
Free. So you understand how the boom and bust cycles work. And he really does. He goes up to the level of the federal government and shows how printing more money does this and changing interest rates does that. And it's
Understand fundamentally how the
so
market
clean.
is.
Yeah, beautiful stuff.
Great.
And so once you've got that, you have an idea of what's going on.
You understand the framework you're playing
Yeah.
in.
I would at least glance through the conclusion on the Fred. There's a paper there
Okay.
that actually shows the 10-year minus 3-month thing, and there's proof of it.
Beautiful.
Right. And then you go, okay, now I understand how this works as a divergence. The next thing would be probably to go on Infopedia. Investopedia.
Investopedia. Never heard of it.
It's like a Wikipedia thing, but for like finance stuff.
Awesome.
And while you're there, Google things like put option, call option, inverse fund. And just knowing the terms that we've even used would really help you get a grip on, okay, I see what they're talking about now.
Yeah.
Because if we're using words you understand, of course you're not going to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to revisit a
Yeah,
lot of
we
this
have to revisit
conversation
it.
and
Sure.
actually,
It gets a little
watch it.
jargony, right?
Well, I mean,
That's to make
we're
money
doing the
people,
best that we can.
Yeah, but that's to make the money people make you think you can't do it.
yeah,
It's all it is.
honestly, what is it? My favorite Tony Robbins quote is, complexity is the enemy of execution.
That's right, yeah.
When people think everything is so hard, they think they can't do anything.
they can't
so
do
you gotta
anything,
break
so
it
they're
down to
paralyzed.
something that's digestible and it makes sense, and you're willing to take an action
Yep.
towards it. And I think that's
Definitely.
key. So I think we've really done that today. At
Feels
least
like it. I'm
I
happy.
feel like
Right.
I think I understood quite a bit. To be honest with you, like sitting down on this chair today, I didn't expect. I mean, we did this completely raw. We didn't plan
Oh, sure,
any of
we
this.
know. No.
So I definitely feel a little bit more confident. Do your due diligence. I'm going to do mine for sure. I think this is
And
very
make sure,
good.
remember, guys, We're not telling you to do this.
Yeah.
We are not giving you financial advice. Neither of us is certified as a
For
financial
sure.
anything.
Yes.
You know, this is just my idea of what I'm going to do based upon what I see in the world. And
Yeah.
you can believe me, or if it doesn't work for you, don't believe me. It's entirely
Yeah,
up
you're
to
just like a really smart person, but it's
Sure,
all right. It
sure.
doesn't really matter. Why should be smart?
you. Don't say that. They'll expect results.
I'm not expecting
What?
anything. I'm just saying because I don't know. Anyway, okay. Yeah, we should wrap this thing up.
Yeah, I think
this was
so.
a good episode.
This
What
is
do you
good.
think? We should talk like a little bit before we go.
Sure.
Let's. I think you had a really good idea, and that I can try to incorporate in these podcasts is how can we give people something to take away, maybe like a bullet point summary type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So today I think we talked about a few things. We talked about relationships. We talked about
Sure.
how actually it's difficult because a lot of conversations that we have day to day are very surface.
Right.
Right. And you need to be able to probe somebody a little bit deeper. And I think people, I don't know, that would be my takeaway would be like, if you're trying to get into a relationship with somebody, you need to orient yourself first.
Right.
That's number one.
And maybe just as a way to make sure you're orienting yourself correctly, I would say
Yeah.
think of relationships as being like a layer cake.
Yeah.
Don't confuse that base layer of infatuation with common goals or vice versa. Make sure you know what you're getting and what you're going after.
Yeah.
When those two are in line, you're going to be just fine.
Be clear on what
But
it
just
is
be
you
clear.
want. Sure.
Yeah. If you like raw chemistry, that's not the same thing as saying they have the same views on children or futures or retirement as I do. That's not the same thing.
Yeah.
So know what it is that you're going after. Know what it is that what you want and where you are.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay. So that's number one. And then I think we then started to get into, you know, the economy definitely seems like it's about to do a
Yeah, it's getting
downturn.
there.
You know, it's getting there. It's on everybody's mouths. It's everywhere you turn in terms of finance. That's predicted.
Mm-hmm.
Now we looked today through the data of all the past crashes in the last 70 plus years, and from what we saw, the trend, it seems like there's correlation to be found between the Fred graph, which is the Treasury's 3 to 10 month.
3
10
months to 10 compared to 10 years.
Yeah, to 10 years, basically distribution of how the economy is doing.
Right.
And that's about to hit zero. And when it does, we believe from the patterns between 4 months to 4.5 months to 13 months, roughly speaking, the
Right.
economy will be in a depression.
About that. So you should probably wait no more than a month or two before you make the move.
And at that point, if you are a low risk investor, you can invest in things like the two stock
You
options.
could invest in what are called an inverse fund.
Inverse fund.
Like the triple Q.
Yep.
I'm sorry, PSQ is an inverse
An
fund.
inverse fund essentially is just taking the current economy and betting against it potentially,
That's
right? So
exactly
that's all you're doing there. And if you want to be a little bit more getting asymmetrical risk reward, you have to look into things like put options,
Buying put
options, call options, and the third word was inverse. Something.
Oh, you're just looking for things that move inverse funds.
Inverse funds. So yeah, just look for those things. Pretty good way of judging
I think it's a very
whether or not.
quality way.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to take advantage of the situation. You know, rather than being
Right.
a victim to what's happening around
Yeah,
you.
you're either
Take-
on the
yeah,
boat or
take-
you're in the
Yeah,
waves.
for sure.
Which one do you want?
Take it. Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Yeah.
Well, wow, this has been really fun.
This is awesome. I had
This
a
is
good time.
awesome, man. We should do this again.
Anytime you want.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks everybody who hung out with us for it's been a long time.
Do you have like fake applause now?
Yeah, no, I don't have any of that shit, man. So, all right, cut this thing out of here.
All right.